The rain was pounding so hard against the window that it drowned out her heartbeat. Lily Adams stood silently in the kitchen, one hand on her swollen belly, the other holding a cracked phone. The screen showed Ryan calling, her husband's name. The man she won. When the door slammed open, she flinched. Ryan stumbled in, reeking of alcohol and anger. "Where's the money, Lily?" His voice was sharp enough to cut through the thunder. She spoke softly. "Ryan, I already paid the rent and the bills. There's nothing left." Her words trembled like her bow. He laughed, cruel and hollow. "Nothing left? You mean you wasted it all again?" He grabbed the envelope from the counter, scattering grocery receipts onto the floor. The sound of paper ripping echoed in the small kitchen. Lily's eyes filled with Ryan shoved her shoulder. "You think carrying my kid makes you untouchable?" The words sliced deeper than any bruise. "You're useless, Lily. Can't even make me proud." But he was already beyond reason. His hand came down hard against her cheek. The crack of skin meeting skin blended with the roar of thunder outside. Lily stumbled, hitting the corner of the counter. Her knees buckled. For a moment, everything blurred. The lights, his voice, the world. She reached for the table to steady herself, but he yanked her wrists. "Stop crying," he shouted. "You always act like a victim." Through her tears, she whispered, "Because I am one." Ryan froze for half a second, then turned away. "You think anyone cares? No one's coming to save you." He grabbed his jacket and stormed out, slamming the door so hard it shook the walls. Silence. Just the ticking clock and Lily's shallow breaths. Her vision spun, the room tilting. She clutched her belly, whispering to her unborn baby, "Hang in there, please. Mommy's here." But her legs gave out. She sank to the floor, her head resting against the cold tile. Outside, lightning split the night sky, and somewhere in the distance, a car screeched to a halt. Headlights flooded through the window, blinding her for a second. The door creaked open again, but the footsteps that followed weren't Ryan's. A deep, steady voice said, "Ma'am, are you okay?" She tried to speak, but her lips only parted in silence. The last thing she saw was a man's silhouette kneeling beside her, his hands trembling as he checked her pulse. Then everything went black, and just before she lost consciousness, she heard him whisper, "Don't worry, you're safe now." The world came back in fragments, white ceiling lights, muffled beeping, the faint smell of antiseptic. Lily blinked slowly, her throat dry, her body aching as if every bone remembered the storm from last night. A nurse's gentle face leaned over her. "You're safe now, sweetheart. You're at St. Mary's Hospital." Lily's first thought wasn't herself. It was her baby. She pressed a trembling hand to her belly. "My baby? Is the baby okay?" The nurse smiled softly. "Your little one is strong. The heartbeat's steady. You're lucky. Someone found you just in time." Her heart fluttered. "Someone?" Before the nurse could answer, the door opened. A tall man in a charcoal coat stepped in, his eyes kind yet burdened with worry. "I'm Daniel Moore," he said quietly. "I saw you fall last night. I couldn't just leave you there." Lily studied him through tears, barely able to find her voice. "You saved me?" He nodded, his tone calm but protective. "You passed out near the intersection. I called 911 and rode with you here. The doctor said you lost a lot of blood pressure, but you and the baby are stable now." A silence stretched between them. She could only whisper, "Thank you." He smiled faintly. "You don't have to thank me. I just did what anyone should have done." Yet something in his eyes said otherwise. Something deeper. Something haunted. Moments later, the nurse returned with a clipboard. "Your husband has been trying to call," she said carefully. "Do you want us to let him visit?" The question froze the air. Lily's chest tightened. The image of Ryan's angry face flashed like lightning in her mind, the yelling, the blows, the lies. Her fingers dug into the blanket. "No," she whispered. "Don't let him near me." Daniel's expression hardened, jaw tightening as if he understood too well. "I'll make sure he doesn't." The nurse nodded and left, sensing the tension. As the room fell silent again, Daniel pulled up a chair. "You don't have to explain anything right now. Rest. You've been through hell." But Lily's voice cracked. He said no one would care. That no one would save me. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I thought he was right. Daniel looked at her with quiet strength. He was wrong. You're not alone anymore. His words hit her heart like a soft wave against broken glass. For the first time in months, she didn't feel invisible. She didn't feel weak. Outside, rain drizzled softly against the window. gentler now, almost healing. Lily watched it fall and whispered to her unborn child, "We'll be okay, won't we?" Daniel heard her but didn't interrupt. Instead, he stood and pulled the blanket higher over her shoulders before turning toward the door. "Rest, Lily. I'll be right outside if you need anything." She wanted to ask why he cared. She wanted to believe in his kindness. But exhaustion won. Her eyes fluttered shut again, and as Daniel stepped into the hallway, he made a silent promise to himself. He would never let that man hurt her again. 3 days passed in quiet uncertainty. The bruises on Lily's face had faded slightly, but the ones on her heart felt deeper than ever. Every sound in the hospital corridor made her flinch. Each creak of the door made her wonder if Ryan had found her. Daniel had visited every day, sometimes bringing flowers, sometimes just silent reassurance. He never asked too many questions, never pushed, yet his presence filled the room with an unfamiliar calm. On the third morning, the doctor entered with her chart. "You're recovering well, Mrs. Adams, but stress isn't good for your baby. We recommend you rest somewhere safe for at least a few weeks." Safe. The word echoed like a foreign dream. Where could she possibly go? She had no money, no family nearby, and no courage left to start over. That evening, as the sun dipped below the hospital's glass windows, Daniel appeared again, holding a small paper bag. "I thought you might be hungry," he said, setting it down gently. Inside were warm muffins and a note that read, "You're stronger than you think." Lily smiled faintly. "You don't even know me." Daniel looked away for a second, then said, "Maybe not, but I know what it's like to lose hope." There was a heaviness in his tone, a story untold. Before she could ask, her phone buzzed on the table. The screen lit up. Ryan calling. Her pulse quickened. "He found me." Daniel stepped closer. "Don't answer. You're under hospital protection now. He can't touch you." But she hesitated. Fear mixed with guilt. What if he came here anyway? What if he hurt someone else? Her trembling hand hovered over the phone before finally declining the call. The silence afterward was deafening. Moments later, a nurse burst in. "There's a man downstairs demanding to see Mrs. Adams." Lily's breath caught. Daniel's face darkened instantly. "Stay here," he ordered firmly and left before she could protest. Through the small window of her room, Lily saw the commotion near the entrance. Ryan stood there, shouting at security, waving his arms wildly. His voice carried even through the walls. "She's my wife! You can't keep her from me!" Daniel approached him, calm but cold. "She's under medical care. You need to leave." Ryan sneered, eyes filled with venom. "Who are you? Her new boyfriend?" Daniel didn't answer, but the look in his eyes was enough. "If you care about your child at all, walk away before you ruin everything." For a moment, Ryan froze. Then with a bitter laugh, he spat, "You think you're some hero? She'll crawl back to me. She always does." He turned sharply and stormed out into the rain. Daniel exhaled slowly, watching him disappear. Then he glanced back toward Lily's window, where she stood trembling behind the curtain. Their eyes met briefly through the glass. She pressed her hand against the window, silently thanking him. But neither of them noticed the black car parked across the street, engine idling. Someone inside watching, taking pictures. The night after Ryan's outburst, the hospital finally settled into uneasy quiet. The hall lights dimmed. Machines hummed softly, and the scent of disinfectant hung heavy in the air. Lily lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Every time she closed her eyes, Ryan's voice echoed in her mind, "You'll crawl back to me." Sleep wouldn't come. Instead, tears did. Silent, endless, helpless tears. She pressed her hand over her belly. "We'll be free one day," she whispered to her unborn child. "I promise." At 2 a.m., she heard footsteps outside her door. Steady, calm. She knew that rhythm by now. Daniel. He peeked in quietly, noticing her tear-streaked face. "You can't sleep?" She shook her head weakly. "I keep thinking, what if he comes back?" Daniel moved closer, his voice soft. "He won't. I made sure security has his photo. They'll stop him at the entrance." "But he always finds a way," she murmured. "He knows how to twist things, how to make people believe him. I used to believe him too." Daniel sat down beside her bed, his gaze steady. "Abusers don't change, Lily. They charm. They break, then they blame. But you survived. That takes courage." She looked at him, truly seeing him for the first time, the faint scar near his jaw, the tired eyes that had seen too much pain. "Why do you care so much? You don't even know me." Daniel hesitated, his voice lowering. Because someone once needed me, and I was too late. He swallowed hard. My wife was 6 months pregnant. Her ex found her before I could get there. I promised myself I'd never stand by again. Lily's breath caught. For a moment, neither spoke. The room felt heavy with shared sorrow. I'm sorry, she whispered. He shook his head. Don't be. Just promise me you'll never go back to him. Before she could answer, a loud bang echoed from downstairs. The sound of raised voices followed, urgent, chaotic. Daniel immediately stood. Stay here, he said, his tone suddenly sharp, commanding. Lily's pulse raced. She could hear shouting through the vents, security guards arguing with someone. Her stomach tightened with dread. Daniel, please don't go alone. But he was already gone. Minutes stretched like hours. Then, the door burst open. Daniel returned, his expression tense but controlled. It's okay, he said quickly. They caught someone outside trying to get in through the side exit. He ran before they could see his face. Her heart dropped. It was him, wasn't it? Daniel hesitated just long enough for her to know the truth. He knelt beside her, gently taking her hand. He won't hurt you again, I promise. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't even know how to start over. Daniel's hand tightened slightly around hers. Then let me help you start. For the first time in months, she felt a flicker of safety, fragile but real. She nodded slowly, whispering, okay. Outside, the night rain began again, but this time it sounded softer, almost protective. Neither of them saw the shadowed figure by the parking lot fence, watching as Daniel closed the blinds. A cigarette ember glowed, then vanished into the dark. Morning sunlight poured through the blinds, painting faint lines across the hospital bed. For the first time in weeks, Lily felt warmth that wasn't bruising her. She sat up slowly, sipping the oatmeal the nurse had brought. Her body was healing, but her mind was still a battlefield. Daniel had left early for a board meeting. Before leaving, he'd stopped by quietly, setting a small white rose on her nightstand. The note beneath it read, for strength. The gesture made her smile faintly. Maybe kindness still existed in the world after all. But the calm didn't last. Around noon, a nurse walked in nervously. Mrs. Adams, your husband is here. Lily's spoon froze midair. What? He insists he just wants to talk. He says it's urgent. Her chest tightened. She shook her head violently. No, I don't want to see him. Before the nurse could respond, the door opened. Ryan stepped in, wearing clean clothes, hair neatly combed, eyes full of fake sorrow. The transformation was terrifying. He looked like the man she'd married, not the monster she'd escaped. Lily, he said softly, voice trembling. I've been sick with guilt. Please let me explain. She stared at him, unable to speak. Every fiber of her body screamed danger, yet part of her, the part that once believed, hesitated. You shouldn't be here. I just needed to see you, he said, taking a cautious step forward. I made mistakes, I know. I was drinking too much. I lost control. But I love you. I love our baby. Tears burned her eyes. Love doesn't leave bruises, Ryan. His jaw tightened, the mask slipping for a second before he forced a smile again. I can change. I've already started therapy. You can ask my pastor. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a folded paper. Look, proof. I'm trying. Lily glanced at it, an appointment slip, real or forged, she couldn't tell. Her hands shook. Why now? Because I saw your picture in the news, he said quietly. They said some man saved you, that you're staying here under his care. His tone darkened. Is that true? She swallowed hard. He's just helping me. Ryan's eyes narrowed. The fake remorse in his face cracked, revealing something colder. Helping you, or taking what's mine? Before she could answer, the door opened again. Daniel walked in, files in hand, clearly unaware of the scene he was walking into. He froze when he saw Ryan. Sir, Daniel said evenly, this room is off limits to anyone not on the patient list. Ryan forced a smile, switching tones instantly. Ah, you must be the man who saved my wife. Thank you. He extended his hand. I owe you my gratitude. Daniel didn't take it. Your wife needs rest, not confrontation. Ryan's jaw flexed. Of course, I was just leaving. He turned back to Lily, whispering, we'll talk later. When he walked out, Daniel glanced at her. You okay? Her lips trembled. He's not done. I know that look. Daniel's eyes hardened. Then neither am I. And outside in the hallway, Ryan smirked as he pulled out his phone, dialing a number that would soon turn Lily's fragile peace into another storm. That night, the hospital corridors buzzed with quiet tension. Lily barely touched her dinner. She couldn't shake the image of Ryan's smirk, the calm cruelty in his eyes. He'd always known how to twist the world into his favor. That mask of charm could fool anyone, police, neighbors, even her once. Daniel sensed her unease. He'd stopped by after his meeting, still in his suit, tie loosened, eyes shadowed with fatigue. "He's not coming back tonight," he said softly. Security doubled shifts. Lily forced a smile. "I wish I could believe that's enough." Daniel hesitated before taking a seat beside her. "Can I ask you something? Has anyone ever documented what he did to you?" Her eyes darted away. "No, I covered the bruises. I made excuses. Every time the police came, he'd hold my hand and cry. They always believed him." Daniel's expression darkened. That's how men like him survive, behind the image of a loving husband. He stood, pacing slightly, then reached into his briefcase. "There's something I need to show you." From a slim folder, he pulled several printed pages and laid them on her lap. Lily frowned. "What is this?" "Hospital records," he explained. "The nurse in charge of your case, her name's Helen, found inconsistencies. You've been admitted 3 times in the last year for accidental falls, each report written by the same attending doctor, and that doctor happens to be Ryan's cousin." Lily's heart thudded painfully. He covered for him? Daniel nodded grimly. "Every visit, every bruise, reclassified as an accident. Helen said she always felt something was off but was told to stay quiet." Lily's eyes filled with tears as she traced the printed words, her own pain rewritten like fiction. "He erased my suffering." Daniel leaned closer. "Not anymore. I've made copies of everything, real evidence. If he comes near you again, this file goes straight to the police and the press." For the first time in days, Lily felt something shift inside her, fear giving way to fragile resolve. "Why are you doing this for me, Daniel?" He looked down, voice quiet but firm. "Because the system failed my wife. I won't let it fail you." Their eyes met, 2 broken souls recognizing the same kind of loss. A knock interrupted them. It was Nurse Helen, the older woman with kind eyes. She entered hesitantly, holding another envelope. "Mr. Moore," she said, "you might want to see this. It was delivered for Mrs. Adams this evening." Lily's brow furrowed as she opened it. Inside were printed photos, grainy images of her and Daniel talking in her hospital room, his hand on hers. Scrawled across the bottom in Ryan's handwriting were the words, "Nice to see you moved on so quickly." Her blood ran cold. Daniel took the photos, scanning them with narrowed eyes. "He's trying to build a story," he muttered, "to paint you as unfaithful." Lily covered her mouth, trembling. "He'll ruin me." Daniel shook his head firmly. "No, he'll try, but this time he won't win." And as he spoke, a flicker of lightning illuminated the window, revealing a shadowy figure standing across the street, watching their every move. The next night, the air in the hospital felt heavier, too still, too quiet, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Lily couldn't sleep. Her mind replayed the images from the envelope over and over again, Ryan's handwriting burning into her thoughts. "Nice to see you moved on so quickly." Daniel had gone to speak with the hospital's security chief, promising tighter surveillance. He didn't tell her, but he had also asked a friend at the district attorney's office to start an unofficial background check on Ryan Carter. Something about that man's control, his calculated charm, gnawed at him. Lily sat by the window, staring at the city lights outside. "How did my life become this?" she whispered. "I used to dream about a little house, a baby laughing in the yard." Her voice cracked. "Now I'm scared to close my eyes." She reached for the rose Daniel had given her and held it close. Its petals had begun to wilt, yet somehow it still smelled like hope. Then, footsteps, slow, measured, coming closer. She tensed. At this hour, only the night nurses should be around. The doorknob turned slightly, just enough to make her heart race. "Daniel?" she called softly. No answer. The door creaked open. A man's silhouette slipped inside, the scent of cologne, familiar, suffocating. "Ryan." Her breath caught. "What are you doing here?" He smiled, shutting the door quietly behind him. "You didn't think a little security could keep me from my wife, did you?" "Get out," she cried, pressing the call button, but he moved fast, yanking the cord from the wall. "Shh," he hissed. "You're making a scene." "Please," she begged, backing toward the bed. "You're scaring me." He reached out, his hand tightening around her arm. "You embarrassed me, Lily. Everyone's talking about that hero CEO. You think he cares about you? They'll get bored and throw you away." Tears streamed down her face. "You're sick, Ryan." I'm done living in fear." Something in her tone broke through his rage. For a brief second, his face softened, almost human. "We can fix this," he whispered. "We can go home." Lily shook her head. "There is no home." The words hit him like glass shattering. His grip tightened again, hard enough to bruise. "You ungrateful." The door burst open. Daniel stood there, chest heaving, a security guard right behind him. "Let her go." Ryan spun around, his face twisting. "You think you can steal my wife?" Daniel stepped forward. "You lost the right to call her that the moment you laid a hand on her." For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Ryan shoved Lily aside and lunged at Daniel. The two men collided, crashing into the tray table. The sound of metal echoed down the hallway. The guard pulled Ryan away, restraining him as he thrashed. "You'll regret this," Ryan shouted, voice cracking with fury. Lily collapsed into Daniel's arms, shaking uncontrollably. He held her close, whispering, "It's over. You're safe." But as Ryan was dragged away, his eyes locked on Daniel's, cold, promising vengeance. And in that instant, Daniel knew. This wasn't over. It was only the beginning of war. The hospital grew quieter after Ryan's arrest. Guards now patrolled every floor, and Lily's room was moved to a private wing. She hadn't spoken much since the attack. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ryan's furious face, the way his voice cracked between rage and desperation. Daniel stayed close. He had postponed all his meetings, ignoring the calls that poured in from his company. None of it mattered right now. All that mattered was that she felt safe. That evening, the storm outside returned, wind slapping against the glass like angry hands. Lily sat by the window, her hospital gown loose around her shoulders, staring at the dark sky. "Why does it always rain when something terrible happens?" she asked softly. Daniel gave a faint smile. "Maybe the rain's just washing away what doesn't belong." She turned toward him, her eyes tired but curious. "Why are you really doing this? You barely know me, and yet you're risking everything." Daniel hesitated. For days he had kept a part of himself hidden, the part that explained why her pain affected him so deeply. Finally, he sat down beside her. "I haven't told you everything, Lily," he began quietly. "I used to be married." Lily's gaze softened. "What happened?" He looked down, fingers clasped tightly together. "Her name was Emily. She was kind, patient, full of life. We were expecting a baby girl." His voice trembled slightly. "One night, her ex showed up at our house. I wasn't there. I was at work, closing a deal I thought mattered. He broke in. She called me, but by the time I got home..." He swallowed hard, unable to finish. Lily's breath caught. "Daniel," he forced a small, broken smile. "People called me a hero after I built a foundation for victims of abuse. But the truth is, I built it because I couldn't save her." Silence filled the room, heavy and raw. Lily reached out and touched his hand gently. "You're saving me," she said, voice trembling. "That means she didn't die in vain." Daniel's eyes glistened as he met her gaze. "You remind me of her sometimes, the strength, the way you still hope, even after everything." Lily looked away, blinking back tears. "I don't know if I still have hope, Daniel. Maybe I'm just surviving." "Surviving is the first step to living again," he said softly. For a moment the world outside seemed to quiet, the storm's fury fading into gentle rain. It was as if the universe paused, giving them both a breath of peace. Then the phone on the bedside table buzzed. Daniel picked it up before Lily could. "Unknown number." He frowned and answered, "Hello?" A man's voice on the other end spoke coldly. "Tell Mrs. Adams she should watch the news tonight." The line went dead. Lily's heart pounded. "What did they say?" Daniel hesitated, then turned on the small television mounted on the wall. A breaking news banner flashed across the screen. "Local businessman arrested for assault. New details emerge." There, among the scrolling photos, was Ryan's mugshot, and next to it, a grainy image of Daniel carrying Lily from the street that night. The caption read, "Married woman rescued by CEO. Affair suspected." Lily covered her mouth in shock. "He's turning it against us." Daniel's eyes hardened. "Then it's time I stop being quiet." And in that moment, he decided if Ryan wanted war, he'd chosen the wrong enemy. For 2 days, the headlines wouldn't stop. CEO's secret affair with pregnant woman. Charity founder caught in scandal. News vans parked outside St. Mary's, cameras waiting for a glimpse of Lily. Every channel twisted the story into something cheap, something cruel. Inside her private room, Lily sat motionless, the TV turned off but the echo of lies still ringing in her head. He's destroying your life now, too, she whispered. Daniel stood by the window, sleeves rolled up, jaw tight. He's trying to destroy your strength, and he's using me to do it. He turned toward her. We can fight this, but you need to trust me completely. She looked up, fear flickering in her eyes. What if people believe him? What if they think I'm that kind of woman? Daniel walked closer, his tone calm but firm. Lily, people will always believe what's loudest, but truth doesn't fade. We'll make them see it. That afternoon, he called a press conference, not as a CEO, but as the founder of the Moore Foundation. The statement he prepared was simple but powerful. No woman deserves violence. No survivor should be shamed for being saved. He refused to answer gossip questions, redirecting every reporter to focus on domestic abuse awareness. Watching the broadcast from her hospital bed, Lily felt something stir inside her. Something she hadn't felt in months: pride. When Daniel returned, she smiled faintly. You didn't have to defend me in front of the world. I didn't, he replied. I defended the truth. Later that evening, Nurse Helen brought in a tray of food and a small potted plant with pink buds. A little color for your room, she said kindly. Lily touched the petals gently. They're beautiful. They're lilies, Helen smiled. Fitting, don't you think? The coincidence made her laugh softly, and for the first time the sound didn't feel foreign. Maybe it's a sign, she murmured. Outside, the first rays of sunset broke through the clouds, turning the rain into gold. The world suddenly didn't look so cruel. Daniel leaned against the doorframe watching her. You look different, he said. Lighter. I feel it, she admitted. I know the world still thinks I'm broken, but maybe I'm starting to bloom again. He smiled, but there was something else in his eyes. Admiration, protectiveness, something unspoken. That's the Lily I see. They sat together in peaceful silence until the hospital lights dimmed. She felt safe, anchored by his presence. But safety, as she'd learned, was fragile. Just before midnight, her phone vibrated on the nightstand. Unknown number again. Against her better judgment, she answered quietly. A voice, Ryan's, low and mocking, slithered through the speaker. Enjoy your fame, sweetheart. The world loves a scandal. But remember, everything you have, I can still take. Lily froze, her heart hammering. Leave me alone, he chuckled darkly. You'll see me sooner than you think. The line went dead. Daniel looked up from the chair, concern sharp in his eyes. Who was that? She met his gaze, tears glinting. It was him. He stood instantly, every trace of calm gone. Then this ends now. Outside the hospital, unseen in the shadows, a man lit another cigarette and smiled. Because the next phase of his plan had already begun. The following morning, Daniel arrived at the hospital early. His eyes were weary, his phone buzzing non-stop with calls from his board members. We can't ignore the media, his assistant had said. The stock is dropping. Sponsors are questioning your judgment. But Daniel didn't care about numbers right now. He cared about the woman sitting quietly by the window, clutching her belly as if holding her world together. Did you sleep? He asked softly. Lily shook her head. I keep hearing his voice. He's everywhere, Daniel. Every time I look at my phone, it's like he's watching me. Daniel placed a folder on her lap. Then let's take away his power. Inside were bank statements, Ryan's bank statements. Lily's brows furrowed as she flipped through them. What is this? I asked a friend to dig deeper, Daniel explained. Ryan's been emptying your joint account for months, transferring money to an offshore fund. He's not broke, Lily. He's been stealing from you. Her face went pale. He said we were in debt. That's why he got angry. That's why he... She trailed off, shaking. Daniel's voice steadied her. He lied to keep control. Abusers don't want power. They want ownership. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered, I thought I was helping him. Daniel took a deep breath. That's what they make you believe. Before they could speak further, the door burst open. Nurse Helen hurried in, holding a folded newspaper. You need to see this. The headline splashed across the front page read, Pregnant woman manipulates CEO for money. Beneath it, a photo of Lily crying in Daniel's arms during the night of the confrontation. Lily covered her mouth. No, Daniel grabbed the paper, fury flashing across his face. He leaked this. He's feeding them lies. Helen nodded grimly. Reporters are outside the hospital again. They're saying she staged everything for sympathy. Lily's voice broke. I can't do this anymore. I can't fight him in the world. Daniel knelt beside her, his tone low but resolute. You don't have to fight alone. But she was spiraling. He's taken everything, my name, my dignity. Now he's turning you into a villain too. Daniel placed a steady hand over hers. Listen to me. The truth always finds daylight, but we have to give it a path. He pulled a flash drive from his pocket. This holds evidence. Financial fraud, false insurance claims, everything he's hidden. I was waiting for the right time to show you. Lily blinked through tears. How did you get all that? Daniel's lips curved into a faint, humorless smile. You're not the first person Ryan has hurt. He's got a trail of debts and a few very angry people willing to talk. For the first time that morning, Lily's fear wavered. You think we can stop him? Daniel nodded. No, I know we can. But before he could say more, his phone buzzed again, this time with a text from an unknown number. Just 3 words. Too late, hero. Daniel's stomach dropped. He looked up sharply at Lily. Pack your things, we're leaving. Leaving? Why? He stared toward the window, where across the street a car sat idling, tinted windows reflecting the gray morning. Because sometimes before the truth sets you free, it tries to destroy you first. The hospital discharged Lily the next morning under Daniel's supervision. Cameras flashed as they exited through a side door. Security guards blocking reporters shouting cruel questions. Did you trap the CEO? Are you carrying his baby? Lily kept her head down, clutching the file Daniel had given her, the truth she was now afraid to hold. Every flash of light felt like judgment. Every whisper felt like poison. Daniel opened the car door for her and said quietly, "Don't look back." He drove her to a small gated estate on the edge of town, one of his private residences rarely used. The air there smelled of pine and safety. When they entered, Lily froze at the sight of framed photos lining the hallway. Daniel with his late wife smiling before tragedy. It felt sacred, like stepping into a memory. Stay here for a few days, Daniel said softly. Nobody knows this place. You'll have peace. Lily nodded, grateful yet uneasy. Peace was a fragile thing she no longer trusted. As Daniel went to answer a call from his attorney, she wandered into the garden outside. The wind was cool, the flowers swaying like whispers of freedom. For the first time in weeks, she breathed without fear. Then her phone vibrated in her pocket. Unknown number again. Her stomach twisted. Against her better judgment, she answered. A man's voice, not Ryan's but someone else's, spoke coldly. Mrs. Adams? We have a message from your husband. Check your email. The line went dead. Hands trembling, she opened her email app. One new message. Subject line, miss me? Inside was a video. She pressed play and nearly dropped the phone. The footage showed Daniel at his office, shaking hands with a district attorney. A caption below read, "Deals made behind your back, you're just another project to him." Her throat tightened. No, this isn't real. But the doubts crept in. Ryan was capable of anything, even twisting the truth to destroy her only ally. Daniel returned moments later, noticing her pale face. What's wrong? She turned the screen toward him. What is this? He froze, then sighed deeply. He's trying to turn you against me, Lily. That video's edited. I was talking to the DA about protecting you. Her eyes filled with tears. How do I know that's true? Everyone lies, Daniel. Everyone. He stepped closer, his voice steady but desperate. Look at me. If I wanted anything from you, I wouldn't be risking everything to keep you safe. Her heart ached. She wanted to believe him, but trauma doesn't let trust grow easily. Before she could respond, the house alarm blared, shrill and sudden. Daniel rushed to the control panel, frowning. Security breach. Someone just opened the back gate. Lily's breath hitched. He found us. Daniel grabbed his phone. Get to the safe room. Now. She hesitated, clutching her belly, every instinct screaming in terror. He turned sharply, voice firm. Lily, go! She ran toward the hallway as Daniel dialed the police. Through the window, movement flashed, a shadow slipping past the hedges. The alarm cut off abruptly. Silence fell. Lily reached the safe room door, heart racing, when a voice whispered behind her, smooth and venomous. Going somewhere, sweetheart? She spun around and the phone slipped from her trembling hand. Lily froze. The voice behind her was unmistakable, Ryan's, low and poisonous. She turned slowly. He stood near the doorway, rain dripping from his jacket, a twisted smile spreading across his face. You didn't think a locked gate could keep me away, did you? Her pulse pounded in her ears. How did you find me? Ryan shrugged casually. You never were good at hiding. Cameras outside the hospital, reporters, GPS from your phone. It wasn't hard. You always underestimate me. Stay away, she warned, backing up until her shoulders hit the wall. He stepped closer. I just want to talk. All this media nonsense, this affair story, it's perfect. They believe every word. You made me the villain, but now you'll fix it. You'll tell them you lied. Tears filled her eyes. You're insane. No, he hissed. I'm practical. You'll clear my name and we'll disappear. Just you, me, and the baby. A fresh start. Before she could respond, heavy footsteps echoed behind him. Daniel. Step away from her, he ordered, voice sharp, steady. Ryan turned, smirking. Ah, the hero arrives. Tell me, Daniel, how many women have you saved to fill your dead wife's void? Daniel's eyes darkened. This isn't about me. Ryan laughed bitterly. Oh, it is. You think she loves you? She doesn't. She pities you. Same as she pitied me. Lily's voice trembled. Stop it, you don't get to twist everything. Ryan's expression snapped from mockery to rage. He lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. Daniel moved fast, pinning him against the wall. Let her go. Ryan struggled, snarling. You'll regret this. Daniel's voice dropped, cold as steel. I already regret not stopping you sooner. He pushed Ryan back, and the man stumbled. But as Daniel reached for his phone to call security, Ryan bolted through the back door, vanishing into the storm. Lily collapsed onto the floor, shaking uncontrollably. Daniel knelt beside her. You're safe now. She stared at the door. No, he's not done. He never stops. Daniel helped her to the couch. His hands steady even as his heartbeat thundered. Then we'll make sure he can't hide anymore. Later that night, as the rain softened, Daniel called his contact at the district attorney's office. I have evidence of fraud, stalking, and assault. I want a warrant by morning. While he spoke, Lily sat silently, staring at the security footage Daniel had pulled up on his laptop. One camera feed froze on a face she recognized, the neighbor from her old street, Mrs. Collins, standing at her gate during one of the fights months ago, phone in hand. Her eyes widened. Daniel. She saw everything. He turned to her. Who? My neighbor. She was there the night he hit me the first time. She must have recorded it. Daniel's eyes lit with sudden purpose. If she still has that video, it's the key to everything. The court, the press, the truth. Lily nodded, gripping his hand. For the first time, the fear in her chest flickered into something else. Hope. Outside, the storm cleared completely, the moon breaking through the clouds. And somewhere in the distance, a phone began to ring. A call that would finally bring Ryan Carter's lies crashing down. A week later, the courthouse buzzed like a beehive. Reporters lined the steps, microphones raised high, waiting for their next sensational headline. But for Lily, this wasn't about fame. It was survival. She stepped out of the car, her hand trembling in Daniel's steady grip, her belly round beneath her pale blue dress. Just breathe, Daniel whispered. We have truth on our side. Inside, the air was tense. Ryan sat at the defendant's table, perfectly groomed, his lawyer whispering in his ear. His smirk was calm, almost confident, like a man who believed charm could rewrite reality. When Lily entered, he looked at her and mouthed the words, You'll regret this. Her heart pounded, but she lifted her chin. For the first time, she refused to look away. The judge entered, and the trial began. Ryan's attorney wasted no time twisting the story. Your Honor, he said smoothly, this case isn't about abuse. It's about manipulation. My client's wife fabricated injuries, staged photos, and seduced a wealthy CEO for personal gain. Gasps rippled through the room. Lily felt her stomach twist, but Daniel squeezed her hand under the table. Stay calm, he whispered. Truth doesn't need to shout. When it was her turn to testify, Lily rose slowly. Every step toward the witness stand felt like walking through years of fear. She placed her hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth, and began. At first, Ryan was kind, she said softly. He brought me flowers, sang to me, told me I was his world. But then, little by little, he broke that world apart. She described the nights of screaming, the bruises she hid beneath long sleeves, the apologies that always came with gifts and tears. As she spoke, her voice wavered, but not her courage. When Ryan's lawyer cross-examined, his tone was sharp. Mrs. Adams, you claim your husband abused you, yet you stayed. You never filed a police report. Isn't it true you wanted to? I wanted to believe he would change, she replied, tears welling, because that's what love does, it hopes. Her answer silenced the room. Even the judge paused. Then Daniel took the stand. Calm, composed, his voice firm. I found Mrs. Adams unconscious on the street, bleeding. I saw the fear in her eyes. No one fakes that. Ryan's lawyer scoffed. Mr. Moore, are you sure your feelings for Mrs. Adams didn't cloud your judgment? Daniel met his gaze evenly. My judgment was clear the moment I saw what he did to her. Finally, Daniel's attorney submitted the evidence. Bank records, falsified medical files, and at last, the video from Mrs. Collins. The courtroom fell into absolute silence as Ryan's past unfolded on the big screen. The shouting, the strikes, the threats. Ryan's face drained of color. That's not, he stammered. The judge's gavel struck sharply. Enough! When the hearing recessed, Lily exhaled for what felt like the first time in years. Daniel touched her shoulder. You were incredible. But as they walked toward the exit, a reporter shouted, Mrs. Adams, the verdict will come tomorrow. Do you think justice will finally win? Lily turned slightly, her voice steady. It has to, for every woman still too afraid to speak. And somewhere in the crowd, Ryan's cold eyes followed her, planning his next move before the gavel could even fall. The night before the verdict, the air inside Daniel's penthouse felt heavier than usual. Rain drummed softly against the windows, echoing Lily's heartbeat. The court battle had drained her. Every memory she'd buried was now public. Every wound reopened before strangers. Daniel moved quietly around the living room, making tea while keeping an eye on her. She sat curled up on the sofa, hands resting on her belly. What if the judge doesn't believe me? She whispered. What if Ryan walks free? Daniel sat beside her, his expression gentle but resolute. He won't. We've given them proof. Truth doesn't need luck. Lily smiled faintly, but fear lingered behind her eyes. You sound so sure. I have to be, he replied softly, because if I let doubt in, he wins. Outside, thunder rolled low, distant but steady. The city lights flickered through the rain, painting her face with gold and gray. For a moment, she leaned her head on his shoulder, closing her eyes. You've done so much for me, she murmured. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. Daniel looked down at her, the corners of his lips curving into something almost tender. Just live, Lily. That's all I want. But even in that quiet moment, he could see the fatigue consuming her. She'd barely eaten, barely slept. Every time her phone buzzed, she flinched, afraid of another anonymous message from Ryan's supporters. The trial had made her a symbol, but symbols often suffered in silence. Hours later, Daniel walked into his office to take a call. The voice on the line belonged to his attorney. We found something else, the man said. Ryan's trying to transfer his assets to another name. He's planning to flee if he loses. Daniel's jaw clenched. Then make sure he can't. When he returned to the living room, he found Lily still awake, watching the rain. He's not going to escape justice, Daniel promised. I won't let him. She smiled weakly. I believe you. But as she stood to walk toward her room, her knees suddenly buckled. The teacup she held shattered on the floor, spilling across the marble. Lily, Daniel rushed forward, catching her before she hit the ground. Her face had gone pale, her breath shallow. My stomach, she gasped, clutching her belly. Something's wrong. Daniel's world tilted. Stay with me, okay? Breathe, Lily, breathe. He lifted her into his arms, heart pounding, and ran toward the elevator. Minutes later, they burst through the emergency entrance of St. Mary's Hospital. Nurses rushed to take her as Daniel shouted for help. She's 7 months pregnant. Something's wrong. They wheeled her down the corridor, her fingers gripping his tightly until the doors to the operating room closed between them. He stood there, soaked from the rain, hands trembling. The sound of monitors and rushing footsteps filled his ears. Through the small window, he saw doctors moving fast, voices urgent. Then, flat beeping. A nurse pressed buttons, another called for assistance. Daniel's heart stopped. No, he whispered. A doctor appeared moments later, face grave. We're doing everything we can. Please wait here. Daniel sank into the nearest chair, head in his hands. For the first time since he met her, fear overtook his calm. And as the red light above the surgery room blinked, he realized the fight for justice meant nothing if he couldn't save her life. The sterile hallway outside the operating room felt endless. Daniel paced back and forth, the echo of his footsteps swallowed by the hum of fluorescent lights. Every second stretched into eternity. The red light above the door still glowed, a cruel reminder that Lily was fighting for her life. He ran a trembling hand through his hair, staring at the floor, replaying every word he'd said to her that night. He won't win. But what if he already had? What if Ryan's poison, The stress, the fear had pushed her too far. When the surgeon finally stepped out, Daniel rushed forward. "How is she?" The doctor's voice was calm but heavy. "She's stable for now, but her blood pressure dropped dangerously low. We had to perform an emergency procedure to prevent preterm labor. The baby's heartbeat is steady, but she needs complete rest, no stress, no contact with her husband." Daniel exhaled shakily. "Can I see her?" The doctor nodded. "Just for a few minutes." He walked into the dimly lit room. Machines beeped softly beside the bed, each sound a fragile promise that she was still here. Lily lay pale and still, her breathing shallow but steady. Her hand rested on her stomach. Daniel pulled a chair close, sitting down slowly. "Hey," he whispered, voice breaking. "You scared me half to death." Her eyelids fluttered. "Daniel?" He smiled through relief. "Yeah, I'm here." She tried to speak, but her voice was barely a breath. "The baby?" "Safe," he said quickly. "You both are." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I thought I was losing everything again." He reached for her hand, holding it firmly between his. "You didn't. You fought. You always fight." Silence filled the space between them, gentle and heavy at once. Then she whispered, "Daniel, if something happens to me, promise me you'll protect my child." His throat tightened. "Don't talk like that. Nothing's going to happen." "Please," she insisted weakly. "Promise me." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I promise, but I need you here to keep that promise with me." A faint smile touched her lips. "You're too good. You deserve someone whole, not someone like me, broken, scared." He leaned forward, eyes glistening. "Lily, you are the bravest person I've ever met. You saved yourself the moment you chose to leave him, and you saved me too." Her brows furrowed softly. "Saved you?" He took a shaky breath. "I thought my heart died with my wife. I didn't think I could care again, not for anyone. But then I met you. You reminded me that hope isn't a weakness." Her eyes filled with tears, his words sinking deep into the silence. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice trembling. He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I love you, Lily, not because I pity you, but because you're strength in its purest form." Her tears fell freely now, mingling with a fragile smile. "I don't know if I deserve that." He shook his head gently. "You deserve everything good that's left in this world." Her fingers curled around his hand. "Then maybe there's still hope for me too." But outside the room, unnoticed, a nurse's cart rolled past, a phone recording quietly underneath. Ryan's eyes watched from afar, planning his cruelest move yet. Morning sunlight crept through the blinds, soft and golden, but Lily didn't feel its warmth. She sat upright in her hospital bed, staring at the bouquet of white roses Daniel had brought earlier. For the first time, the sight of flowers made her uneasy. They reminded her of every apology Ryan had ever offered before breaking her again. Daniel had stepped out for a board meeting, promising to be back by noon. "You'll be safe," he'd said, kissing her hand gently. "The guards outside your door won't let anyone through. But danger rarely knocks, it slips in quietly." Around 10, a young nurse entered with a cheerful smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Adams. Time for your medication." Lily hesitated. "You're new here. Where's Nurse Helen?" "She's on another floor today," the nurse replied smoothly, preparing the syringe. "Just a vitamin booster for the baby." Something in her tone felt rehearsed. Lily's instinct screamed, "Can you show me the chart?" The nurse froze, just for a second, long enough. Then she forced a smile. "Of course." She turned slightly toward the counter, but her hand moved instead to her pocket. Lily's eyes widened. "You're not a nurse." The woman's smile vanished. "Quiet." Before Lily could scream, the door swung open. A tall man in a gray cap stepped in, Ryan. Lily's heart stopped. "No, no, please." He closed the door behind him, locking it with a soft click. "Relax, sweetheart. I'm not here to hurt you. Unless you make me." Tears filled her eyes. "What do you want?" He stepped closer, his voice low and controlled. "You're going to come with me. We're leaving this place. I already have a car waiting downstairs." "You'll never get away with this," she whispered. He chuckled. "I already have. Daniel's too busy playing the hero for the cameras. He doesn't even know you're missing yet." The fake nurse pulled a wheelchair closer. "Let's go, now." Lily's pulse raced. She glanced toward the emergency call button. Too far. The window, too high. She had only her voice. "You think people will believe your lies forever?" she shouted suddenly. "The world saw what you did. The truth's already out there. Ryan's face twisted. Not yet, but once you're gone, it'll fade, just like every other story. He grabbed her arm, pulling her up from the bed. Pain shot through her abdomen. "Stop," she cried. The commotion caught the attention of a passing nurse outside. She knocked on the door. "Everything okay in there?" Ryan froze. "Say one word," he hissed, "and I swear." But Lily didn't hesitate. She screamed, "Help me!" The door burst open. Security guards rushed in. The fake nurse lunged toward the window, but one of the guards tackled her to the floor. Ryan tried to run, shoving past another guard. Chaos erupted. Shouts, metal clattering, glass breaking. Daniel appeared moments later, breathless, fury blazing in his eyes. "Get him out," he ordered. Ryan was restrained, handcuffed, his smirk gone. "You think this ends here?" he spat. "You'll never have peace. I'll make sure of it." Daniel didn't respond. He turned to Lily, kneeling beside her, voice trembling. "You're safe now. I swear he'll never touch you again." But as the police dragged Ryan away, he whispered something under his breath, something that made Daniel's blood run cold. "You can't protect what's already broken." The hospital had never felt colder. After Ryan's attempted kidnapping, police flooded the halls, sirens flashing outside like angry lightning. Lily sat wrapped in a blanket, trembling as paramedics checked her vitals. Daniel stood beside her, jaw tight, his hands balled into fists. "Why didn't the security system alert sooner?" he barked at the head guard. "We think someone on the inside tampered with the surveillance feed," the guard replied nervously. "We're checking every camera." Daniel's voice hardened. "Do it fast. He's not gonna stop." Lily turned toward him, her voice fragile. "He said you can't protect what's already broken." Daniel crouched in front of her. "He's wrong. You're not broken, Lily. You've survived everything he's thrown at you. That's not weakness. It's strength." She wanted to believe him, but the exhaustion in her body was heavier than his words. Her baby kicked softly beneath her hand, reminding her that there was still something precious to protect. Later that afternoon, Detective Harris, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and quiet authority, arrived to take Lily's statement. "We've issued another warrant for Ryan Carter," she said. "But he's vanished. His car was found abandoned near the industrial district." Daniel frowned. "He's planning something. He never runs. He sets traps." The detective nodded grimly. "Then we'll be ready." By evening, the hospital was under lockdown. Still, Daniel couldn't shake the unease gnawing at him. He stepped into the hallway to make a call, his tone low but urgent. "Get a team near the West End. If he's watching, that's where he'll strike." Minutes later, a nurse ran up, breathless. "Mr. Moore, she's gone." Daniel froze. "What do you mean, gone?" "Mrs. Adams, we turned our backs for 1 second and her room was empty. The windows open." Panic shot through him. He raced back to her room. Empty bed, curtains blowing, the faint sound of wind whistling through the open window. His chest tightened. Then he saw it. A note left on the pillow, written in shaky handwriting. "Don't come after me. I have to end this." "No," Daniel whispered. She wouldn't. Detective Harris appeared behind him. "Track her phone, now." Within minutes, the trace pinged an abandoned warehouse near the docks, Ryan's old construction site. Daniel didn't wait for backup. He grabbed his coat and keys. "If he hurts her, I swear." "Daniel," Harris shouted. "Wait for us." But he was already gone. The drive through the storm felt endless. His headlights sliced through sheets of rain, the world a blur of fear and fury. When he reached the docks, the warehouse loomed in the darkness, its windows glowing faintly. He stepped inside quietly, the floor creaking under his shoes. Then he heard it, a cry. Lily's voice. "Please, Ryan, don't." Daniel's heart pounded. He followed the sound until he saw them. Ryan standing behind Lily, one arm gripping her shoulders, the other holding a shard of glass near her neck. "Let her go," Daniel shouted. Ryan laughed, wild and desperate. "You think you can take her from me again?" Daniel took a slow step forward. "You've already lost her." Lightning flashed, illuminating the chaos. Lily trembling, Ryan's eyes blazing, Daniel ready to fight. And as thunder roared outside, Daniel lunged forward, knowing that one wrong move could cost them everything. Rain poured through the broken windows of the warehouse, lightning flashing across the rusted beams. Lily's sobs echoed through the vast space as Ryan pressed the shard of glass closer to her throat. "Don't move," he screamed. His voice cracked, trembling between fury and madness. Daniel stood frozen a few feet away, palms raised. Ryan, listen to me. You don't want to do this. Ryan's laugh was hollow. Don't I? You took everything from me. My wife, my reputation, my life. Daniel's voice stayed calm, deliberate. You destroyed those yourself. Lily just stopped letting you win. Shut up! Ryan shouted, dragging Lily backward. Her foot slipped on the wet floor and she gasped. The glint of the glass shook dangerously close to her skin. Daniel's mind raced. He needed a way to distract him. Slowly, he slid his phone from his pocket and pressed record. You think I ruined you, Ryan? Let's hear your side then. Tell me what you did for her, how you loved her. Ryan's breathing hitched. I did love her, he shouted, voice breaking. She was mine before you came along. I gave her everything. Lily's voice cracked. You gave me fear. You gave me bruises. His hand trembled. I gave you a home. You gave me hell, she whispered. Lightning flashed again, bright as daylight. Daniel seized the moment. He lunged forward, knocking the glass from Ryan's grip. It skittered across the floor. Ryan swung wildly, hitting Daniel's jaw, but Daniel didn't stop. The two men struggled, grunting, slipping in the rain-soaked floor, until Ryan's foot caught a loose board. He fell backward, crashing hard into a stack of metal pipes. The sound was deafening. Daniel stumbled to his feet, breath ragged, and pulled Lily into his arms. It's over, he whispered. But Ryan wasn't done. He coughed, laughing weakly. You think the world will believe you? They'll never see you as a savior. They'll see you as a man who wanted another man's wife. Daniel looked down at him, disgust in his eyes. Then maybe they should hear it from you. He raised his phone, showing the red recording light still glowing. Ryan's smirk faltered. What? You just confessed, Daniel said evenly. Every word is recorded. Every threat, every lie. Ryan's face twisted in horror. He tried to lunge again, but his body gave out. Sirens wailed in the distance, police cars closing in. Moments later, Detective Harris and her team stormed inside, weapons drawn. Freeze! Ryan didn't resist this time. He simply collapsed to his knees, muttering to himself, she was supposed to be mine. Harris handcuffed him and glanced at Daniel. We got your distress signal. You okay? Daniel nodded, still holding Lily tightly. We're fine. It's over. But as they walked out of the warehouse, Lily stopped suddenly. Rain drenched her hair, her dress clinging to her trembling body. She turned to Daniel, tears mixing with the storm. No, it's not over, she said quietly. Not until the world knows the truth. He looked at her, realization dawning. You want to release the recording? She nodded. Every word, every scream, every scar he tried to hide behind lies. Daniel smiled faintly, admiration and pride in his eyes. Then let's make sure no woman ever fears his shadow again. And as dawn broke through the clouds, the first rays of light fell on Lily's face. A woman no longer defined by pain, but by truth. 2 weeks passed since the night at the warehouse. Ryan was behind bars, his confession video viewed over 3 million times in a single day. News anchors called it the case that changed the conversation. But for Lily, justice was only part of healing. The real victory was silence, the kind that didn't come from fear, but from peace. She and Daniel spent those days in a private recovery home by the ocean, far from cameras and headlines. The sea breeze carried a calm rhythm that helped her breathe again. Each morning, Daniel would bring her tea, and they'd sit together on the porch watching the sunrise. You did it, Daniel told her one morning. You didn't just survive, you changed lives. Lily smiled faintly. Maybe now, somewhere, another woman will choose to walk away sooner than I did. But as she looked toward the horizon, a sudden pain rippled through her abdomen. Sharp, deep, unmistakable. She gasped, clutching her belly. Daniel jumped up instantly. Lily? What's wrong? Her face contorted with pain. It's the baby, she whispered, her voice breaking. It's time. Within minutes, Daniel had her in the car, speeding toward the hospital. Rain began to fall again, soft at first, then harder, as if the sky itself was holding its breath. Just breathe, Lily, he said, trying to sound calm even as fear gripped his heart. We're almost there. I'm scared, she admitted, gripping his hand tightly. What if something goes wrong? Nothing will, he said firmly. You've already been through the worst. This is life. They reached St. Mary's, the same hospital where her story had begun. Doctors rushed her into a delivery room, Daniel following close behind. The fluorescent lights above blurred as she fought through waves of pain, her breath shallow, her hands trembling. Daniel held her hand the entire time, whispering, You're doing amazing, just a little longer. Hours passed in a haze of sweat and tears. Then finally, a cry. A sharp, beautiful sound that sliced through the chaos. The doctor smiled. "It's a girl." Lily's body relaxed as tears streamed down her face. The nurse placed the tiny bundle in her arms. The baby's skin was soft and pink, her cries strong and defiant, like her mother's spirit reborn. Daniel stood beside her, eyes shining with awe. "She's perfect," he whispered. Lily looked up at him, her voice trembling. "I never thought I'd see this day. I thought my story would end in pain." He smiled gently. "No, Lily, this is where your story begins again." She gazed down at her daughter, tracing the baby's fingers with her own. "Her name will be Hope," she said softly, "because that's what saved me." Daniel's throat tightened. It suits her. For a long time they simply watched the baby sleep, the storm outside fading into dawn. But then a nurse entered quietly, holding a sealed envelope. "This was delivered for you, Mrs. Adams." Lily frowned. "Who would send something here?" The nurse shrugged and left. Lily opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a photo, Ryan behind prison glass, smiling. Written across the bottom were the words, "See you soon." Her heart froze. Daniel took the photo, his jaw tightening. "He's bluffing," he said, though the look in his eyes told her he wasn't sure. And as baby Hope stirred in her arms, Lily realized that even freedom can carry shadows. The weeks after Hope's birth were a blur of quiet nights, soft cries, and whispered lullabies. Lily had never known such peace or such fear. Every knock on the door made her flinch. Every unknown number made her heart race. The letter from Ryan haunted her dreams. His smiling face burned into her thoughts. But Daniel refused to let the shadows return. "He's locked away," he reminded her gently one morning as they walked along the beach outside the recovery home. The baby slept in her stroller, tiny hands curled into fists. "You and Hope are safe now." Lily nodded, though her eyes stayed fixed on the waves. "I know. I just keep wondering if safety is something people like me ever really get." Daniel stopped walking. "People like you?" "People who've been broken," she said softly. "Even when we're free, a part of us still belongs to the pain." He studied her for a long moment before speaking. "Pain doesn't own you anymore, Lily. You took it and turned it into strength." She smiled faintly. "You always say the right thing. Maybe because I mean it." For a while they walked in silence, the ocean breeze tangling her hair. When they returned to the house, the late afternoon sun painted the walls gold. Hope began to fuss, and Lily rocked her gently. Daniel watched her, this woman who had survived everything and still found a way to love again. Later, after putting the baby down, they sat together on the porch. The air was warm, the world unusually still. Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Lily blinked, startled. "Daniel, what are you doing?" He opened it slowly. Inside, a simple diamond ring caught the sunlight, shimmering softly. "I've been thinking about this for a long time," he said quietly. "You've taught me that love isn't about rescuing someone, it's about rebuilding together. You gave me a reason to believe in second chances." Her eyes filled with tears. "Daniel, he took her hand gently. "I know you're scared. I know the past still follows you, but I want to walk beside you through whatever comes next. Not as your savior, but as your partner." Lily's voice trembled. "I'm not sure I'm ready for love again." He smiled tenderly. "That's okay. I'll wait, because when you're ready, I want you to know I'll still be here." She looked down at the ring, tears blurring her vision. "You don't understand. I don't deserve this." He reached out, brushing her cheek. "Lily, after everything you've endured, you deserve the world." The words broke something inside her, the walls she'd built around her heart. She covered her mouth, crying quietly. "I don't want to live afraid anymore," she whispered. "Then don't," he said softly. "Live free, with me." She took a deep breath, her trembling hand reaching for his. "Yes," she whispered, voice breaking but sure. "Yes, Daniel." He slipped the ring onto her finger, tears glistening in his own eyes. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the world seemed to exhale. Hope stirred inside the house, crying softly, as if blessing their promise. But far away, in a gray prison cell, Ryan Carter watched a televised interview of their engagement. His lips curved into a slow, dangerous smile. "Congratulations," he muttered. "The game's not over yet." At first, their engagement felt like a sunrise after a long night. For weeks, Lily allowed herself to breathe, to smile without guilt, to dream without fear. But happiness, she learned, has enemies. and the world doesn't always cheer for a woman who stands back up. The news broke one morning. A gossip outlet published the headline, "Widowed CEO marries his pregnant mistress." Below it, photos of Lily and Daniel's arms splashed across the internet, some real, some fabricated. The comment sections filled with venom. She's using him for money. She trapped him with a baby. Women like her ruin good men. Lily's hands shook as she scrolled through the endless cruelty. "They don't even know me," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Daniel gently took the phone from her. "Then stop giving them space in your head." "But they're tearing us apart online," she said, voice breaking. "It's like I can't escape Ryan. Even behind bars, he's still winning." Daniel sighed, frustration tightening his jaw. "We can't control what people say. We can only live our truth." That evening, he received a call from his public relations director. "Daniel, this scandal is tanking your company's reputation. The board wants you to step back from public appearances." Daniel's reply was calm but firm. "Then I'll step back. My reputation isn't worth more than her peace." When he hung up, Lily looked at him with guilt. "You shouldn't have to lose everything because of me." He met her eyes. "I'm not losing anything that matters." Still, the storm outside their love grew louder. Paparazzi camped outside the recovery home. Journalists shouted questions through the gates. Even the foundation Daniel had built for survivors faced backlash. Sponsors threatened to pull funding, claiming the scandal made them look bad. One night, as rain poured again, Lily stood on the porch, watching the flashes of cameras beyond the fence. "They want a villain," she murmured, "and I'm the easiest one to paint." Daniel joined her, wrapping a coat around her shoulders. "Then we'll change the story." "How?" He hesitated, then pulled out his phone. "By telling the truth. Our way." The next morning, Daniel held a live press conference. No prepared statements, no publicists, just him and Lily, side by side. He spoke first. "I didn't fall in love with a scandal. I fell in love with a survivor." He turned toward her, his eyes soft but unwavering. "Lily Adams didn't destroy my life. She reminded me what life is worth." When Lily took the microphone, her hands trembled, but her voice didn't. "I'm not ashamed of my past. I was beaten, humiliated, and blamed, but I'm still here. And if that makes me unworthy in your eyes, that's fine, because I no longer live to please the world. I live to protect my child." For a moment, the room was silent. Cameras flashed, reporters froze, unsure whether to attack or applaud. Then, one by one, people began to clap. Daniel took her hand, squeezing gently. "You just took your story back," he whispered. But later that night, as they watched the coverage on TV, a breaking news alert flashed. Ryan Carter's prison transfer had failed. The screen showed police cars overturned, alarms blaring, and one chilling line: "Inmate escaped custody." The words "inmate escapes custody" echoed through the living room like a death sentence. Lily dropped the remote, her pulse thundering in her ears. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "This can't be real. They said maximum security. He wasn't supposed to get out." Daniel immediately called Detective Harris. His voice was low but sharp. "How the hell did this happen?" "We don't know yet," Harris replied grimly through the phone. "There was a transport ambush outside Sacramento. 2 officers injured, 1 missing. We've issued an all-points bulletin, but he's vanished." Lily's breath hitched. "He's coming for us, Daniel. I know he is." Daniel hung up, meeting her terrified gaze. "He won't touch you. I'll make sure of it." But deep down, he knew Ryan's obsession wouldn't stop until it ended in blood, one way or another. That night, Daniel reinforced the doors, doubled the guards, and kept Lily and Hope close. Yet despite the precautions, sleep wouldn't come. Lily sat by her baby's crib, rocking gently as the lullaby music box played. "You'll never know what fear feels like," she whispered to her daughter. "Not if I can help it." Daniel stood quietly in the doorway, watching her. He'd never seen strength look so fragile, or love so fierce. The next morning, news spread that Ryan had been spotted an hour away, near the coast. Detective Harris called again. "We've got units moving in, but we need you both to relocate. We'll send an escort to take you somewhere secure." Lily's voice trembled. "We can't keep running. I'm tired of being afraid." Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. "This isn't running, it's surviving." But before the escort arrived, something unexpected happened. A woman appeared at their gate, an older lady, gray-haired, her face lined with grief. She clutched a rosary in her hands. Daniel met her at the door cautiously. "Can I help you?" The woman's voice was weak. "I'm Ryan's mother." Lily froze at the sound of that name. Mrs. Carter's eyes filled with tears. "Please, I know what my son's done. I tried to stop him. But he's not right in the head. He's not just angry, he's sick." Daniel's tone softened but stayed guarded. "Ma'am, he's dangerous. You shouldn't be here." She nodded. "I know, that's why I came. He called me last night, said he was going to finish what he started. I begged him to surrender, but he wouldn't listen." She reached into her coat and handed Daniel a folded piece of paper. "He told me where he's going. Maybe you can stop him." Daniel opened it. Coordinates scrawled in Ryan's messy handwriting. A cliffside property overlooking the sea. Lily's heart sank. "That's the old lookout near the docks, where everything started." Daniel met her eyes, determination cutting through fear. "Then that's where it ends." Harris arrived moments later with her team. Daniel handed her the note. "He's expecting me," he said quietly. Harris frowned. "Daniel, this isn't your job. It became my job the moment he hurt her." Lily grabbed his hand, eyes wide with tears. "Please don't go. You've already saved me." He cupped her face gently. "Not yet. Not until he's gone for good." As Daniel walked out into the fading light, the ocean wind howling against the cliffs, Lily whispered through her tears, "Please, God, bring him back to me." The morning fog rolled off the cliffs, soft and silver, wrapping the world in quiet calm. Months had passed since that final night, the night Daniel faced Ryan for the last time. The confrontation had ended with sirens and shouts, with Ryan cornered on the edge of the cliff, refusing to surrender. One last step backward, and the waves had swallowed his shadow forever. For Lily, it took weeks to believe it was truly over. Even longer to forgive the world for letting it happen in the first place. But now, as the sun broke through the clouds, peace didn't feel like a stranger anymore. The sea stretched endless and blue before her, the scent of salt and roses filling the air. Rows of white chairs lined the sand, a simple arch draped with silk and lilies swaying gently in the breeze. Guests murmured softly, smiling as the sound of distant gulls mixed with violin music. Daniel stood at the altar wearing a light gray suit. He wasn't the stoic CEO the world once saw. He was a man reborn, calm, humble, and deeply in love. His eyes searched the horizon for her. Then the soft melody changed. Every head turned. Lily appeared at the top of the path, wearing a flowing white dress that caught the sunlight like water. Her hair cascaded down her back, loose and natural. In her arms, she carried a bouquet of lilies and white roses, symbols of purity and rebirth. But the most beautiful thing wasn't her gown or her smile. It was the little girl toddling beside her, clutching her hand. Baby Hope, now nearly a year old, wore a tiny flower crown and giggled at the feel of sand between her toes. Daniel's eyes glistened as they walked toward him. When Lily finally reached the altar, he whispered, "You're even more radiant than I dreamed." She smiled through tears. "And you're exactly what I prayed for." The officiant began to speak, but Lily barely heard the words. Her eyes stayed locked on Daniel's. Every scar, every sleepless night, every tear, it all led to this moment. When it came time for vows, Daniel took her hands and said softly, "You once told me you didn't deserve happiness, but today I vow to remind you every single day that you do. You and Hope are my home." Lily's voice trembled. "You found me when I was broken and loved me back into life. I promise to spend every day proving that love can heal what pain destroys." The officiant smiled. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Daniel leaned in, their lips meeting in a kiss that tasted of salt and new beginnings. The crowd erupted in applause. Hope clapped her tiny hands, squealing with laughter as the ocean wind lifted her curls. After the ceremony, they stood together by the shore, waves lapping at their feet. Daniel wrapped an arm around her waist. "So," he said quietly, "Mrs. Moore, how does forever sound?" She laughed softly, resting her head on his shoulder, "Like peace." But as the tide rolled in, a sealed envelope washed ashore, its paper marked with a faded prison stamp and Ryan's name. Inside, just 5 words written in smudged ink: "Evil never really drowns." The morning after the wedding, the ocean was calm again, its waves whispering softly against the sand, as if blessing the new beginning. Lily woke to the sound of Baby Hope's laughter echoing down the hall. For once, her dreams hadn't been haunted. No shouting, no fear, just peace. Daniel stood by the balcony, shirt sleeves rolled up, watching the sea. "You know," he said with a grin, "I never thought I'd get used to mornings that don't start with crisis calls." Lily smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Then let's not answer any for a while." They spent the day like a real family, playing with hope on the shore, building tiny sand castles, letting the wind tangle their laughter. By afternoon, they returned to their seaside home, warm and sun-kissed. For the first time, the world felt safe. But peace, as always, doesn't last forever. It started with a knock on the door, soft but deliberate. Daniel frowned, glancing at his watch. "We're not expecting anyone." Lily froze, her hands instinctively wrapping around Hope. "Maybe it's the florist or the staff." Daniel opened the door cautiously. Standing there was an older woman in a dark coat, her gray hair pulled neatly back, her eyes filled with sorrow. "Mrs. Moore?" she asked quietly. Lily's heart skipped. The woman's voice was familiar. "Mrs. Carter?" Ryan's mother nodded slowly, her lips trembling. "I'm sorry for coming uninvited. I didn't want to disturb your peace, but there's something you should know." Daniel's posture stiffened. "Ma'am, with respect, your son nearly destroyed her life." "I know," she said, tears glistening in her eyes. "And I've spent every day praying for forgiveness, for him, for myself, for what he became. But I need you to hear me." Lily hesitated, her heart torn between pain and compassion. "Please, come in." They sat in the living room, the soft hum of the ocean filtering through the open window. Mrs. Carter held a small envelope in her wrinkled hands. "Ryan wrote this before he died. It was mailed to me a week after. I think he wanted you to have it." Lily's breath caught. "Why would he?" "Because," the old woman interrupted gently, "he finally understood what he'd done." With trembling hands, Lily opened the envelope. Inside was a single handwritten note. The ink was uneven, the words messy but clear. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even deserve peace. But I hope one day my daughter grows up knowing her mother was braver than I ever was." Lily's tears fell silently onto the paper. She didn't speak. She couldn't. Mrs. Carter reached across the table, her voice breaking. "He was a monster, yes, but he was also my son. I just needed to see that you're truly free, that my granddaughter will never know his darkness." Daniel placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "She won't. That cycle ends here." Mrs. Carter nodded, relief washing over her face. She stood slowly, looking at Lily one last time. "You're stronger than any of us ever knew. Thank you for giving my son's story an ending he couldn't write himself." When she left, the sun had already begun to set. Lily stood by the window, holding Ryan's note close, tears shining in the fading light. And for the first time, she whispered the words she'd never been able to say, "I forgive you." The world outside was still sleeping when Lily opened her eyes. The first light of dawn painted the sky in soft shades of rose and gold, spilling gently across the waves. For a long moment, she simply lay there, listening to the sound of Daniel's slow breathing beside her and Hope's quiet coos from the nursery. It was peaceful. Real. A life she once believed she would never have. She slipped out of bed and walked barefoot onto the balcony. The sea breeze carried the scent of salt and freedom. Down below, the tide rolled in and out, endless and calm, like time forgiving itself. Daniel joined her a few minutes later, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "Couldn't sleep?" She smiled softly. "I didn't want to. I didn't want to miss this sunrise." He looked at her for a long time, the light catching in his eyes. "You know," he said quietly, "this house was supposed to be temporary. A place to heal, but somehow it became home." Lily turned to face him, her voice gentle. "Maybe that's what healing really is, stopping the need to run." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "And now?" "Now?" she said, gazing toward the horizon. "I just want to live." The sound of laughter drifted from inside. Hope's laugh, bright and innocent. Lily smiled. "She's growing so fast. Sometimes I look at her and see everything we fought for." Daniel nodded. "She's the proof that love can come from pain." A moment of silence passed between them, warm, sacred, full of gratitude. Then, softly, Daniel said, "I talked to Detective Harris yesterday. She wants to start a new division for domestic violence survivors. They need a spokesperson." Lily blinked. "Me? You?" he said with a small smile. "Your story saved lives before, Lily. Imagine how many more it could help if you told it in your own words." She hesitated, emotion tightening her throat. "I was afraid to be seen again." Daniel took her hands in his. Then don't speak for the world. Speak for the women who still whisper in the dark. Tears welled in her eyes, but this time they weren't heavy. They were cleansing. Okay, she whispered. I'll do it. Later that morning, Lily stood before a small audience at a community center overlooking the sea. Cameras recorded her as she spoke, steady, sure, radiant. I used to think survival was the end of the story, she said, her voice carrying through the room. But it isn't. Survival is just the first chapter. The real story begins when you choose to live again, when you decide you deserve peace. The crowd rose in applause. Daniel stood in the back holding hope, pride written across his face. As she stepped down from the podium, she looked toward the open windows where sunlight spilled across the floor. For the first time, the brightness didn't hurt her eyes. It healed them. She walked toward Daniel, took hope in her arms, and together they stepped outside. The ocean shimmered beneath the rising sun, endless and alive. Lily smiled through tears. We made it, she whispered. Daniel kissed her forehead. No, he said softly, you did. And as the sun climbed higher, washing the past away, Lily Adams Moore finally breathed without fear. Her story not of tragedy, but of triumph. So, that's how the story ends. My dear friends, you're still here, aren't you? If you've stayed until now, it means something in Lily's journey has touched your heart in its own quiet way. Her pain, her courage, her healing. It's more than just a story. It's a reminder that no matter how dark life feels, we always have the power to rise again. As the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Lily turned her suffering into strength, and maybe, just maybe, we can too. So if you're watching this tonight, take a deep breath. Forgive what hurt you. Let peace in. And remember, you are never defined by your scars, but by how you choose to heal. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep spreading hope together.